Y'all, welcome back to the village. So today we're gonna be kicking off this happy hour by talking about 2 Americans that were kidnapped, that were found unalive, as well as the 2 others that were rescued. If you haven't heard the story, there was a group out of North Carolina that was traveling to Mexico. They were basically being medical tourists, and basically they arrived Friday morning, like 2 weeks ago, to Matamoros, Mexico, which is just south of Brownsville and has a notorious reputation of being one of the most dangerous parts of Mexico. Shortly after crossing in Mexico, they were fired upon by unidentified gunmen, now known to be from a cartel. And basically they were then subsequently kidnapped out of the van that they were traveling in. This is the van right here. Yeah, you can see all of the damage and stuff. Now a lot of people are just trying to figure out, why were they attacked? Why was this happening? Because it seems like this is such a random thing. Some people were saying they were involved in the drug trafficking. Some people said that they were, mistaken as, enemies. But basically they were found a few days later in and near this, little red shed right here. One was found unalived inside the house and one was unalived outside the house. Eric Williams' picture right here had a wound to his leg and is being treated at the time of the rescue. Within those 3 days, the Americans were moved to different places, such as a clinic. There's been other reports saying that it was a various like stash houses and stuff. We won't get a full picture of what happened until we speak from the actual victims. There's like 11 people that have been arrested in connection to this, and from the actual cartel group, I'm not going to name any names, but basically they said that this wasn't an intentional attack. It was just, a few people acting on their own volition, and basically they just gave them up because they were just like, we're not going to have this, we don't tolerate this, we don't target Americans. Now a lot of people were saying, like, why would they give their own men like that? That is crazy. They're snakes, there's all that. But from my perspective, they didn't want to have another case just like in the incidents of Kiki Carmarina. Basically, he was a DEA agent back in the 80s that put a hole in a lot of the drug trafficking, and cartel activities happening in Mexico. Obviously, when you're messing with somebody's money, they're going to get you back. And so he was kidnapped, tortured, I believe, for like a day and a half, and was subsequently unalived by the cartel. His story was a big part of Narcos Mexico. I implore y'all to go watch it because I feel like that's a good show. It gives you a lot of context going on to what's, happening in, the drug trade and all that. But I think they just didn't want another situation like this on their hand, because after this happened, the USDA went hard. Like, they literally started rounding up people, interrogating people, charging people, basically just had an axe to grind because you just killed one of their own. But just going back to the story, basically the surviving two, Eric and Latavia, they were transported to the port of entry in Brownsville, where they're basically in, treatment. But going back to the story, the 2 surviving victims, Eric and Latavius, are going to the port of entry of Brownsville. They're currently getting medical treatment there before they're going back to North Carolina. And basically, there's still an ongoing criminal investigation about what happened. But the reason I'm talking about this on the show is because medical tourism is a billion-dollar industry. And I know a lot of people have many misconceptions about going to Mexico, saying it's dangerous, which I can make an argument that I feel like it's getting more dangerous to be in the US. Without going deep into the politics of everything, I feel like going to Mexico to certain locations to get medical treatments are okay, because it is too expensive in the US getting medical treatments, whether it be cosmetic surgery, whether it be organ transplants, whether it be simple dental care. And a lot of people are trying to find alternatives to go, different places, whether it be India, Thailand, Mexico, as well as going to many different places to get medical treatment at the fraction of what it will cost in the US. And if people want to have a problem with that, then I say you need to start talking to your politicians and actually, get into the root cause of it. And that is getting affordable healthcare and getting really a national healthcare system to do this type of stuff. Now, you can make an argument that we shouldn't, use it for elective treatments. It needs to be used for like, life-saving, treatments like, emergency room, cancer surgeries, prevention and all that. But pretty much, people wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't a big reason why they're doing it. Another thing I want to bring up about this situation is that the same people who are going to be, complaining as well as like ridiculing these Americans for going on these types of trips are going to be the same people that are going to be calling people fat, ugly, undesirable in the DMs and the comment sections, and basically, go into that stigma that, you know, if you're fat, you ain't sugar honey iced tea. That type of thing is the very reason why people are actually trying to go do these trips, trying to get a tummy tuck, trying to lose weight or unalive themselves by trying to lose weight and all that. And it's just one of those things, like, we need to have a serious conversation. I'm not saying you need to risk your life to be going overseas. I always say that if you're going to go overseas, consult with your doctor, bring your friend, bring an advocate on your behalf to make sure, you know, everything goes smoothly, as well as get post-op treatment whenever you come back to the US. But we need to actually talk about the reasons why people are actually going overseas, because this shouldn't be happening. But if we just ignore the reason why people are actually going overseas, we're not going to, you know, prevent people like Latavia, Eric, and their friends from being ambushed, nor the fact that we're going to prevent people from getting infection or, you know, other diseases from getting, you know, botched surgeries, whether it be in the US or overseas. And before we move on to the next section, I just want to say that Mexico has some of the best healthcare systems in the world. Heck, even some US doctors go and get trained in Mexico, get their accreditation in Mexico, and bring it back over to US because they got quality medical care in Mexico. It just depends on what area you go to get that education or get that treatment. Just like what area you end up in the US is where, you know, you might experience crime or disease, as well as the quality of manufacturers that, you know, really affects your health, such as, you know, safe neighborhoods, healthy food items and options in neighborhoods, as well as a host of other things that we need to talk about that really determines the individual's health. Now, piggyback on the fact that it depends on where you live, basically, Gavin Newsom has announced that California is done with Walgreens due to the abortion pill controversy. Now, if you haven't heard, basically Walgreens has decided to stop dispensing or distributing mifepristone in 20 states after conservative attorneys threatened general action like they always do. And because California is California, basically they decided to stop doing business, or they're considering to stop doing business, as Governor Newsom has said that we're not going to do a business with a company that risks women's lives. Now, basically the basis of why these attorney generals decided to send this letter to CVS and Walgreens is because of the Comstock Act and 1873 law that makes it illegal to send contraceptive substances that induce abortion, pornographic content, special kind of toys, and any written material about these items. And the craziest part about this is several states that many of these generals come from, including Alaska, Iowa, Kansas, and Montana, currently have abortion access, including abortion medication. And there's really no point in doing this other than causing another, you know, point of contention in the culture war. Now, a statement to ABC News, Walgreens has said that they are not going to sell mifepristone in their states, but they are trying to become a certified pharmacy to distribute the drug wherever legally possible, which it will be in California. Now, a fun fact about this is that more than half of abortions in the US are medication abortions, meaning they involve the use of this drug. So if you are still going to that image in preschool where they are, you know, having those like forceps and they're basically, you know, pulling apart the embryo, most abortions are done by taking it. That's one of the biggest misconceptions we have in America about abortions, and it's done on purpose to confuse everybody about it. The drug has been used since 2000 and it was approved by the FDA in that year, and basically it works by blocking the hormone progesterone, which the body needs to continue a pregnancy. Basically this blockage causes the uterine lining to stop thickening and break down and attaching the embryo. The second drug that is used in this series, misoprostol, taking 24 to 48 hours later, causes the uterus to contract and dilates the cervix, which will expel the embryo. I looked up, you know, what would happen if you just take the second drug, misoprostol, before you take the first drug, mifepristone, which Walgreens is trying to get rid of. There's nothing wrong with that, as I'm trying to look at. If you say differently, please say down in the comment section, you know, your opinions. But basically from the comment section right here, they say you can basically take misoprostol by yourself to induce a miscarriage or an abortion. And so from my perception of this whole situation, I feel like not only Walgreens is trying to make it harder for women to have access to, you know, abortion pills or, you know, medication, because they're trying to like keep up with the conservatives, you know, sponsors, investors, and all that. But they also trying to mentally confuse you, saying that, you know, if you don't take this pill, then you won't be able to have an abortion, when in fact there's other options that you have to take the abortion in other ways. So I don't know. I feel like it's just done for business. Like Walgreens is a medical company. Like they should prescribe abortion pills, and they don't really get into the politics of it. Because like I said many times, abortions don't happen because people just don't want babies. Something happens in somebody else's life, or their partner lives, that they don't think that having a pregnancy will do them any good anymore. And it might be better to just terminate the pregnancy than to bring an unwanted child into the world to suffer. So that is my opinion on the whole situation. I just feel like it's a whole bunch of hubbub going on. So we're going to discuss something that I was meaning to talk about for many weeks, and that is Cop City. Basically, if you don't know what Cop City is basically a $90 million facility, which I just found out is a nationally recognized Native American tribal ground. Obviously, with the whole thing going on between police regulations and the community for the past decades, especially the past few years with George Floyd, Trayvon Martin, as well as countless other people being unalived by the police, this is a huge controversy. So the whole mock-up of this place, like I said, is going to be a $9 million facility. It's going to be about 85 acres, of training space, according to the Atlanta Police Foundation. And it's going to include classrooms, a shooting range, a mock city for burn building, and urban police training, as well as a course for emergency vehicle, drivers to train on. Basically, the other 265 acres of the property, which until 1995 served as the old Atlanta prison farm, will be preserved as a green space. Now, that sounds very eerie because I'm pretty sure that has like many callbacks to chain gangs. I just heard many stories of it being, seen as what the issues we have in traditional, prisons today, as it being racialized, as it's being, violent, very much grunt work, trying to like provide food, vegetables, pork, especially to the city and all that, and really prisoners being abused along the way, especially when you're trying to build another training facility on top of that, mainly used by police officers. Then it's not exactly going to sing kumbaya with the residents who will have some ill feelings about it. Now, why are activists protesting and why are many people are getting up in arms about it? Basically, they have been occupying the area since late 2021 in an attempt to halt the project's development. The project will jeopardize the South River Forest, which is surrounded primarily by Black and Hispanic communities, and is our best hope for resilience against the worst impacts of climate change, because you are taking out about 90 acres of forest that we so desperately need, especially when you talk about climate change, and it's not getting any better anytime soon, especially when you talk about these oil companies not stopping, as well as the fact that you're having classrooms, you're having or like urban environments being built, trying to simulate actual real life situations, which I'm not saying don't exist. We don't need to build a whole new facility about it. Like spending $90 million on it, all that $90 million and all that space could be used for like a whole prevention based center, basically, where you can have mental health services, social services, youth intervention programs. You can have a host of intervention, things that you can send and get to kids and to adults to get them what they need so that they don't have to fall back on devious things. Now, protests have ramped up in the past few months, especially with the death of Manuel Esteban Paez Terán, or also known as Tortuguita, who was unalived on January 18th after allegedly shooting back at a state trooper while authorities were clearing people out of the area. That is what the officers claim. There's no real body cam footage. There is no real objectifiable source that he was actually fighting back the police as he was being cleared out. And so very well, he could be in this situation where he was just trying to like give up and surrender. Basically, there was a misunderstanding, like he just got unalived. We don't know that because there was no body cam footage, but after all the history of police, had in this country, in the US, with being aggressive, I don't blame, people for being mad at this situation. And what's so heartbreaking about the situation is that Manuel was a 26-year-old. Like, he's 3 years older than me. And it's just like a young person didn't need to lose his life because, just police wanted to build their own center and all that. And so protests have ramped up behind it. There have been many, many incidences that's been taking place where people have been throwing, Molotov cocktails, throwing large rocks. There was a situation a few months back in January where a protester actually burned a vehicle, in heart of downtown Atlanta, in protest of Manuel's death. Now, last Sunday, basically 35 people were arrested and 23 people were charged with domestic terrorism, with what took place, as you can see here in the video. I know a lot of Karens are going to be like, oh, you know, it's probably black and brown folk, you know, it's probably, you know, black people doing this, you know, they don't like the police, when in actuality, as I go back, it was white people right here, a lot of white people right here. Like, people don't understand that black people don't do domestic terrorism. Like, we already know that if we ever do something like this, like, we would get charged to a point like our great grandchildren will still be in jail. Let's just dispel that whole myth right there that, you know, this is black people doing this, you know, Atlanta just, you know, a hood area, when it's just like clearly a lot of these people are white people, and really like a lot of people are coming from out of town disrupting things and really destroying, you know, not only just property, which I really don't care about police property and all that, but they're also, you know, at risk of destroying the forests and stuff. According to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, about 17 hours of comments continue to play before tonight's vote on Atlanta Police Training Center, which took place back in 2021. If you haven't been in the public policy or activism space, if you have 17 hours of public comments on a particular issue, that is very much a very passionate issue, and 9 times out of 10 is going to be about something that the citizens don't like. And one of the big main talking points that a lot of people keep saying, like, oh, this was passed by Democrats and Republicans, this is bipartisan, all that, but you got to realize that people don't trust the political system to a point where it's just like, no matter who you vote for, no matter which side you vote for, they're all corrupt, and it's all about money at the end of the day. When you talk about, you know, all these super PACs, all these public interest groups, as well as all these shadow donors that taking part in this like campaigns and elections and all that. So just getting Democrats and Republicans to agree on legislation is not really going to help the majority, because it's turned into a rich man's game. So yeah, my personal opinion on this, like, I don't think they're going to ban this, you know, crusade. I think they're still going to try to build Cop City while people are still going to protest Cop City and all that until something else happens. But if it gets to a point where people just destroying stuff, people are just angry and all that in the United States of America, especially when we talk about freedom and all that, then you know you're doing a pretty bad job, or you know it's just, you know, there's something bigger to it than, you know, that you're not really trying to solve. But with that being said, this has been Public Health Happy Hour. Thank y'all for coming through. As you can notice, I'm going to do a rebranding, and I have changed the channel name to Lawrence's Neighborhood or The Village. I'm just trying to throw names out in like the next 2 weeks. Pretty much, I'm trying to like do a better, you know, branding, remodeling to like best recognize what I do. I don't necessarily just talk about health topics. I talk about more like social issues like we just talked about now, as well as a host of other things that I feel like really affects not only you, but also the village around you, your neighbors, family, and all that. And so pretty much I want to do more, you know, branding to encompass that. If you have any suggestions, I'm happy to take them. As well as if you have any other topics for me to discuss, please leave them down in the comment section below. Now, while you're waiting for the next video, please go watch my last commentary video I did. So like it up, subscribe, all that wonderful good stuff. Stay warm, stay frosty, depending on what part of the country you're in, and peace out.